drive some bows.
Yeah, which one?
All of them.
YouTube! What's up? So we're back again doing some more arrow tuning stuff. This is going to be in our arrow tuning series. Yeah. So we've been watching some videos. We're looking to get the best arrow setup for this fall for elk season. So we've been watching some videos on what we can do to do that, and we've come across some spine indexing videos. Yeah, and some bare shaft tune videos.
So Garrett Weaver on point, if you guys have seen some of his stuff, he actually does some pretty cool long range stuff. I'm sure he does some hunting, stuff like that, but
he does it all.
Does it all. So he just put out, well, I guess he didn't just put out, we just came across his video about spine indexing. So Nock tuning, spine indexing, I think they're synonymous, right?
Yeah, I think that's what the gist is. So we want to make sure that these arrows are coming off the bow identical from arrow to arrow. And we've never done this before, so we're just giving it a try, see what happens. And so kind of the process, the way it's been explained to us on these other videos that we're referencing. Take your bare shaft, make a mark on the shaft and shoot it through paper at 15 yards. Okay, you kind of see the paper tune set up behind me. Shoot it through the paper at 15 yards, and then make sure you make that mark where you start, and then turn your nock, quarter turn, shoot it through paper again, and do that all the way around the arrow. Okay, and just a couple things that we're figuring out as we go here. Make sure you're turning the nock the same direction each time, so that you get through.
You don't go back and forth.
Yeah, you're just going back and forth between the two spots. And what you're looking for is, and what we've learned from those videos is, you're looking for the same tear. If you get a bullet hole, that's great. That's awesome. You just want to make sure that you get the same tear from arrow to arrow. Okay?
You're not worried about that's the one thing that I have to kind of get over myself, is you're not worried so much about the bow tune. You don't want to see necessarily, you want to see as close to a bullet hole as you possibly can, but after walk back tuning and things like that, you probably won't see a bullet hole. What you want to do is get pretty much the same tear, and you'll be surprised, which I was surprised, how much just turning the nock 90 degrees will change the tear that you get. So that tells me that if you just buy a dozen shafts, throw the components together and start shooting them down range, they're not reacting the same out of the bow, right?
Exactly. So you can get pretty tight groups doing it that way, and that's the way we've done it. We've even tuned through paper with one shaft, and you're tuning your bow to that arrow. What we want to do is get each arrow reacting the same off the bow, so that we can get the bow tuned to every arrow that we shoot, if that makes sense. One of the other videos that I came across was on Limb Driven TV. They have a bare shaft tuning video out there as well. One of the things that they advised was to put your bow into spec. So put your rest center shot according to spec, according to manufacturer spec, and make sure that you obviously want to make sure that your cams are timed and synchronized, and make sure that your rest, your grip is repeatable. Those are the most important things. So he's getting ready to shoot again here. Don't want to talk in his back wall.
Look at that.
As I'm talking in your back wall. So we'll kind of come down here and we'll see what we got. Talk us through what you just shot.
So you're going to see a lot of different things out here, and
and it's kind of hard to make sense of any of it. This was actually the first arrow shaft that I shot. You see, it's not quite a perfect bullet hole. I've got a little bit of a high tear. So then I shot, then I kind of indexed it around, and it gave me different tears as I rotated that nock. So this is actually the second arrow that I tuned, and all of its shots are around it too. After I got to that same, if you look, they're not identical, but they're similar tears, all right? And that's the thing when we talk about grip and repeatable grips. It would be difficult to get identical tears. However, if you look at these two, these are two different arrows with two different nock positions, and I'm gonna stick with that. This is the last arrow that I just shot, and I just marked it. And to tell you the truth, this is the last two that I've just kept the same nock position.
Yeah.
So that I've done this already with 3 different arrows, and this is the 4th one. There's one that I've only had to take off of a different position that I'm at. So I kind of wanted to keep track of that, because this arrow that we're working with is the Victory RIP-TKO, and if you'll notice on, I think all of the Victory shafts, they put,
At least the ones that we've purchased.
like a spinal line marking on it. So however that works out. Focus. See if that'll help, won't it?
Yeah, probably. It's trying to focus in on what's behind it. A dumb camera. Anyways, that little arrow looking thing is the spine alignment mark.
And at first I didn't think it was going to work out the same way. I thought we were going to get different spine alignments, but these last 3 arrows have been on the same position. Actually, there was one in between that wasn't.
Yeah, so we're not saying to go buy Victory shafts and you don't have to do this process. You want to walk through this process with those shafts. Just confirm it. It's going to give you peace of mind and confidence in your setup.
So here's another thing about that, is like, you might think, well, that doesn't look fun. It looks fairly tedious. I don't want to have to nock tune every one of my arrows. But the more that we study, the more that we test, the more that we feel like it's part of being, it's part of the responsibility that you carry as like a hunter, right? You want to be that in tune with your setup. So that's actually kind of why we both started doing our own tuning, our own setups, actually even looking for different bows. Like I said, shifting gears and looking at arrows. The more I learn about arrows, the more I learn about how to make that arrow more lethal, the more time I want to spend in to make sure that that's the projectile I want to send down range at an animal, just because I want it to work the way I expected it to. You watch videos of guys like out there hunting, and they make a shot. I've seen several videos where the arrow penetrates like 4 inches into the shoulder, elk runs off, no blood trails, running around, and you think, oh well, that elk's fine, and that's probably true. They fight a lot, they stab each other with their horns. I mean, probably worse than that. But guess what? I want to recover that animal. I don't know about you, Josh.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. We have actually seen videos, not going to name any by name, but we've seen videos where they've spent 2 or 3 days looking for elk and found it with help. Yeah, but the animal's pretty much wasted after a couple of days. And depending on the conditions, it might be, you might only have overnight to recover that animal. So it is up to you as a hunter. Once you take that responsibility on, it is a responsibility. You should be putting every effort into being the most lethal and the most successful and ethical hunter that you can be. So That's why we've gone through all this stuff. We started out with Black Eagle arrow shafts, which are not cheap shafts. We thought we had a good setup, which is not a bad setup, right? Black Eagle shafts, they're good. But we ended up shifting gears because we weren't getting what we needed out of that particular shaft.
Yeah. Well, and you might question, and we could probably, I don't know, maybe we could probably build something out of different shafts, but like right for now, this is what's working.
We could have definitely built a lethal arrow with those, but it wasn't meeting the goals we wanted to meet with our arrow setup. So
our total weights, our arrow speeds, and then we're not just doing stuff just cause.
FOC.
That's right.
A lot of people talk about FOC, but they don't really give you a
good explanation about
what it is and why it's important,
and the benefits that you get from it. And there's a cutoff of when it's beneficial and when it's maybe not so beneficial.
Well, and it's all in your comfort zone too.
Yeah, that's true.
You got to be comfortable with the setup you're shooting. So the wind is starting to pick up a little bit out here. It might not be the most ideal situation to shoot these outdoors.
That's
it's a good. Is it
same.
Same tear?
No, it's
not the same.
No.
Did it tear as the thing blew over?
Maybe. I don't know if I can count that one in out or what. I'm gonna get some.
Not necessarily. That was one of the other videos that we tuned into. One of the other videos that we tuned into is actually a video series. Gold Tip has a video series out there that will that covers spine indexing as well. What's the guy's name again?
With who?
The Gold Tip.
Oh, Tim Gillingham.
Tim Gillingham talks about using a spine indexing machine to index your arrows, and there's a lot of guys out there that do it that way, where they'll roll it through and find that stiff spot in the arrow and then mark that and always have that in the same position and tune their bow to that setup, which isn't a bad way to do it. You can't argue with the fact that there is the stiff spot and where they're finding that stiff spot, but Tim Gillingham's theory and experience with doing that is the arrow doesn't necessarily react exactly the same, and you're counting on whether or not you make that mark the same. You're counting on that machine being set up properly. So where you get the most reaction is off of the bow, and that's what really matters, is how it's reacting off of the bow. So it's a little bit more tedious to do it this way, but it's cheaper. It's definitely cheaper than going out and buying a spine indexing machine. So, and I think there is something to be said about having the peace of mind and the confidence in your setup, knowing that you've gone through this process with each arrow and you've seen it react the same through the paper, that kind of thing. So you've got 4 figured out?
I got 4 of them figured out, and like I said, if you want me to show a little bit closer about the process. So what I've done, I don't know if I can. What I've done is I've actually, there's like a factory mark on the Nock. I don't know if you can see that, but there's like that little raised area on the Nock.
Most Nocks come with a mark so that you always can figure out where to put your cock vein if you're using a 3 fletch.
So what I've done is I've just carried that mark through to the arrow shaft, and that's my first initial setting, and I'm going to index that 90 degrees until I get the same tear or close to the same tear.
Usually we'd advise of not doing this outdoors.
It's got an indoor, which we don't have.
But since we're using bare shafts, we're pretty confident that the breeze that we have going right now is not going to affect the shaft enough to affect what we're doing here. I think there's more human error involved with this at this point. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what I like. I mean, I want to take every step possible to eliminate issues with the equipment. And I think that's what, I think we're on the same page that way, Kenneth and I. We want to eliminate all that. And when we have a poor shot, we can say,
it was my fault.
It's my fault. I've got to do better as an archer. But if we're not sure, we've not gone through these processes, we're seeing these videos about bare shaft tuning, spine indexing on the tube. We're gonna go through that. We're gonna get more and more crazy. There may be plenty of you guys out there that are saying, "Is this necessary? Is it really necessary?" Maybe not. Maybe it's not that necessary, but I think we've kind of explained why we feel like it's something that we should be doing.
Yeah, is it necessary? It's necessary for me.
We could reference a movie on that. I'll refrain.
Yeah.
But if you guys are interested in going that next step, maybe this is something that you could think about doing if you're set up with, and you can do this without having a press. You can go through this process, figure out where you're at, and make sure each of those arrows are coming off the bow exactly the same.
That's right. So, yeah, and that's kind of what we wanted to do with this arrow building series, is address every aspect of that list that we put up on that first, and we can probably put that graphic up again if this ever makes it on the YouTube. On the tube. Put that graphic of importance. The arrow lethality is number 1, integrity. Number 2 was achieving arrow flight, a perfect arrow flight.
And that's where this falls.
That's where. So we figured out that this arrow will spine. Now we want to make sure that each arrow reacts the same out of this bow. Does that make? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we actually kind of talked about FOC first, but we might go a little bit more into that.
Yeah.
But we need to talk a little bit about why we went with ethics, the ethics components, I guess.
Well, and I'm kind of testing a couple different things. I won't really go into the other system that I'm testing, but I got a hodgepodge. I got a hodgepodge of gold tip components that I'm testing alongside the ethics.
So that's different than the other three. You see that?
You almost have a perfect bullet hole there.
Yeah, but it's just
Slightly high.
slightly tail high, and that's the process. You saw me shoot this same arrow 3 different times, indexing this Nock, where I get that same tear. And I left those up there just for reference, so that I can see them.
Yeah. So I'm testing alongside the ethics components. Basically, so these arrows are 204 inside diameter, and pretty much most of the companies out there will have an insert system.
So this one's exactly opposite of the other one.
Yeah. So what he's finding here is that spinal line indexing line.
Did I hand you the sharpness?
No.
Oh, no, I got it. It's in the pocket.
Anyways,
Sorry.
204 inside diameter. The reason why I wanted to test the gold tip system out is because it's modular. So if I find that I want to adjust the weight of my point, I can do that easy with that system. The only downfall that I can see to the Ethics archery system
Is you're stuck.
once you make those cuts, you can go lighter, but you can't add weight back on there unless you're gonna do it with your point
Tips.
weight, your tip, your actual practice tips or your broadheads. So, and I mean we're testing this. We're getting to the max of point weight. We're pushing these arrow spine, the 250 spine to the limits. So we shouldn't have that problem. But I like the idea of being able to mess around with it later on.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, we've said it all with our other equipment, with our bows and things. Versatility is value.
Yeah, for sure. And if we want to change bows, we might need to change. So, anyways, if I find this other gold tip system is adequate, I can almost guarantee it's not going to be as strong. Just because this Ethics kit we have. Grab this one. Yeah, go ahead. This Ethics kit, it comes with. I don't know if you can see that there. That's the tip. So if you look at that outsert, that is a stainless steel outsert, and it's fairly substantial. It's not real short, and it comes back over that arrow shaft quite a ways, and we feel like that's going to give us the most structural integrity in that system. So
So that's number one on that list of importance, prioritized. Keeping the structural integrity of your arrow on impact on an animal.
and that starts with the broadhead. You want to have the most structural integrity out of your broadhead that you can get, working your way back to the tail of the arrow.
Exactly. So you'll see we're going to start testing broadheads also. Got some coming. Almost bought me some kudos this morning just for.
Well, I've already shot a few. We've tested them a little bit.
That's right.
We've eliminated the dirt naps.
Dirt nap, single bevels, not going in the bag. It's the target.
There you'll get. Oh, there it is. That looks like a bullet.
So that one actually took a little bit more effort to kind of. It wasn't right on the 90 degrees. I kind of went back 45 a couple of times, or actually 3 different times. So I'm kind of in between those Nock indexes, but.
That makes you want to do that with the rest of them, right?
The other ones were pretty cool.
So which arrow are you going to tune with?
I don't need to tune. It's already tuned.
Oh, you're both tuned. Okay.
Both tuned.
All right. Both
Or else
tuned.
I wouldn't be shooting bullet holes at 5 yards.
All right.
I mean, that's the funny part about it is like when somebody pulls the bow out of the package, they set it up, shoot a bullet hole. There's so many other factors to get a bullet hole with bear shaft than just the bow. There's a lot more to do with
The spine.
the spine of your arrow and the way that the arrow reacts coming out. The spine
Yeah.
index is what we're finding. That's what we're talking. That's the name of the game today.
A lot of the videos you see out there, all they do is show you the finished product. And what we're finding out is that there's a lot of steps in to get to that point. You need to make sure your arrow is spined appropriately.
Yeah.
And then you need to make sure that your arrow is, out of a bundle of arrows, you want to make sure that they're indexed.
So here's the thing. I can pick up another arrow, even I can buy another dozen, the same type of arrow, even the same arrow shaft, 250 spine.
You might not get the same.
I might not get the same result, but now I know that index these to get the closest results for the same exact thing, right?
Yep.
So there's 6 of them.
Nice. Spine index. Shooting bullets.
So if you've got questions about this process that we've just done, comment. Let us know.
If we don't know the answers, we'll point you in the right direction.
Exactly, and probably 9 times out of 10 we won't know the exact the right answer, but we'll look it up for you, and we'll tell you what our experience has been with doing this process.
Like, subscribe, comment.
So what do you want to do with your stuff?
Ring the bell. All that good stuff. Boom!